Hey everybody, it's Casey from Pinecase. I'm joined tonight with Octave 6. I'm super excited because I've been so blessed and spoiled to be hanging out with all of these lovely hip hop artists from the West Coast, my lovely hometown area, and I'm super excited to see like all of this great stuff coming from there. Like it's yeah, it's just the timing is right and it's right now, and I'm really excited to be a part of that for little pieces that I do get to be. So, how's life?
Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of it too.
Yeah, it's gorgeous out there. There were so many festivals this year, and there was so many great incentives, and it seems like everybody's really pushing these beautiful messages, and um, we get to kind of be a part of the storyline a little bit with social media and how exposed everybody is allowing themselves to be in this great age of social media to kind of partake a little bit. So as much as I'm a consumer of music, I feel like I also kind of get to be a part of the process a little bit, as I'm sure a lot of fans do. So it's a neat time to be alive.
Absolutely.
So what's going on over there? Like, what have you been up to? I've seen a few different things happening on the island, and you got a show coming up, and
Yeah, we did a couple shows last week. This sort of big surge at the end. I have 3 shows next weekend. Um, yeah, we just did one on the mountain. We did Music on the Mountain series, which is a pretty cool series. It included people like Caleb Hart and Josie, amongst a bunch of others. And then we played at Pizzeria Gorilla, which is a local venue that'll have us sometimes. And then Thursday we're at Church Street. Friday I will be down in Nanaimo opening for Junk, Canadian underground legend Junk, which is pretty fun. And then Sunday we're in Port Alberni for Salmon Fest. It's like a big fishing derby, and there'll be a bunch of us. Junk will be there too, and Surreal and Emotions, Eliza Smith, QB Mac, Reflections, like a ton of
yeah,
artists. It's a crazy lineup. It's a crazy hip hop lineup, especially for a fishing derby. You don't always see that crossover, but it's really
yeah.
cool. Yeah, Tatiana Massa put that together with, I think, a bit of help from Surreal, and it's gonna be really fun.
It's been so neat to be able to see. I mean, because the island's such a blue collar industry at its roots, and then you see all this like really neat kind of like urban hip hop culture kind of crashing into a lot of it, right? Like you see these old boys that have, I don't know if maybe like Hank Williams III kind of crossed over a little bit before Jelly Roll and all of that or whatever, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's been really fun to see all that happening and everyone get a little taste of the good stuff. So.
Yeah, Hank Williams III was definitely some pretty wild stuff. Um, I think hip hop's here to stay. I mean, I'm 45 years old myself, right? It's not just kind of a young guy thing anymore. I think I knew it had really landed when I heard Biggie in Canadian Tire. That was like, okay, the crossovers happened. I'm looking at Garden Shears, and Juicy is playing. It's just a mainstay now. It's just like everything else.
Isn't
It's
that
in there.
amazing? Oh, that's so
It is.
amazing. I remember
It's
a time when people hated, like, you couldn't have a Tupac poster up, or you couldn't,
oh,
like, are you
yeah.
kidding me? If it wasn't country, it was nothing. And like, if it wasn't rock or Leonard
Just
Skinner or, like,
immediate concern as soon as you brought it up, or it's like the sound of a skateboard. It just like triggered the blue hairs. It's like, what is that? There's nothing that riles up an old Karen like a sound of a skateboard. And I think
yeah.
hip hop was the same way for a long time. Um, but yeah, it's accepted. I find myself playing a lot of things where I certainly wouldn't have, 20 years ago, like music in the park and downtown festivals and farmers markets, and you know what I mean, things like
I love
that.
it.
It's like just at the farmers market, just wrapping away. It's awesome. It's It's great. And I mean, I do have a style that sort of lends itself to that. I'm not exactly a gangster rapper or whatever, but still, just to have that acceptance is really nice. It's something we strive for a long time, sort of ostracized for a long time, and
Yeah.
criticized for a long time is it's
Yeah,
not real.
that's true. It must
Yeah.
feel so good to know that you like, stuck with it, right? Because I mean, all of those things that you're talking about, it took me right back to the Campbell River Skate Park. Actually, when you said like somebody dropping in, they have the worst or had the worst skate park on that the end of Canada. I'm sure of it. It was terrible, but like
Yeah.
that the sound of somebody dropping into a bowl, like it was always a big deal, right? And everyone would be out there like breakdancing. We'd make the best of it, but there was always like somebody's mom playing baseball like 3 fields away who could I don't even know how she could even imagine being a part of what we were up to, but she just like inserted herself and it was wild. And so to think that like you've stuck through some of that culture to like come out on top and be a part of what's
Yeah.
happening now is just yeah, congratulations, because it's super exciting. I know.
Yeah, it is. It's good. It's really good, and it's good to be able to sort of participate in things and sort of pass it along to the younger people, doing workshops and things like that, and just sort of yeah, just sort of because when we were young and starting out, we didn't really have predecessors around. We didn't have any sort of mentorship. Like we were sort of the first wave. And I think I know that looking back, I would have liked to have had some old fella who'd been around that could give me
Yeah,
some advice, and I like to be able. It's nice to be able to offer that to the younger artists, and
yeah,
um, for as much as they want to listen and just sort of say, here's what to watch out for, because there's a lot of pitfalls that come along with the entertainment business, and I think rap is honestly still probably the worst in terms of that, like compared to other things. Like there's just a lot of greasy things to watch out for, and having somebody there to sort of say, you know, watch out for
yeah.
this, watch out for that. It's you don't have to learn everything the hard way like we did.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great that you bring that up because I mean there's a lot of young long comeuppance that happen, especially around like because we do a lot of outreach with the youth through Pinecase. And so whenever they're like, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that. And I'm like, yeah, but look at these dudes that look just like you that like, have the same opinion as you, but they like are working through it or whatever. And so there's, I guess, like I kind of took it to the mental health part, but also to like be the poster child of like what that looks like in a good way. Like you don't have to maybe take these snaky handouts from people that aren't there to have your back or whatever, right? Because the music industry it's man, it's a tall
It's
drink of
greasy,
some
yeah,
weird shit. Yeah.
and sometimes it can feel like, well, I guess this is what we have to do. I guess this is what we have to tolerate, and it's like you don't. Here's a guy who worked around all that, and he took some flack for it. Sometimes when you don't want to be exploited or kind of messed with, people look at you like, well, who do you think you are, or whatever, or you get some kind of blowback from that, and it's like, no, to sort of reinsure reassure people that no, it's okay. It's okay to set those boundaries, and it's okay to stand your ground. And of course, the person who's trying to exploit you will tell you you have a bad attitude or whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean you do. Like, um, yeah, just being able to offer those sorts of insights and not let things become accepted as the norm that shouldn't be.
Yeah, and do you think that like some of that comes I mean, there's gotta be like a lot of frustration that goes with that, right? Like seeing things that you're promised maybe go away because you set those boundaries. And I mean, now it's,
Yeah.
the knowledge is hindsight and you're like, I'm glad I stuck it through to see,
Yeah.
the outside. But I'd imagine going through a lot of that, you're like, well, if I just did this or if I just complied or cooperated, like, because
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
the
you
the
do.
bribery is there, right? The offers are big
You,
sometimes, like,
you will miss things sometimes. You will miss out on certain things, or yeah, sort of burn bridges, or like, but um yeah, sort of standing in the firm in your belief that you're not going to tolerate that stuff. And I think for me, being able to sort of cross over and work with other artists and promoters and things that aren't from the hip hop community, I sort of see, no, like, yeah, I was right. Nobody else is putting up with these things. Like, old ladies that play the ukulele with their husband would never tolerate this crap. You know what I mean? So like, why, it's, and then you come back to the sort of rap community and you say,
right.
other people aren't doing this. And they're like, what? Really? I had no idea. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, right.
this is exclusive to us. And I think part of that is has to do with saturation. Like, there's a lot of rappers nowadays. There's a lot of people doing it, and that creates an environment of hyper competitive, just a lot of competition, and that does kind of open the door for exploitation a little bit, like, um
Mhm.
which I don't think there's anything really anyone can do about that, but um
No, that's a big one to I mean, that I think everyone's been chipping away at long for a long time, but we really haven't gotten a lot of movement from. But as you were saying that, it just dawned on me that hip hop specifically, or rap culture specifically, is actually like, um, it's one of the genres where, uh, like, you don't need an instrument. And I'm not saying that like mixing boards, turntables, all that stuff aren't an instrument. I just mean that, like, you don't necessarily need, you don't need to know the full gamut. Like, a lot of it comes with like the writing and the skill to be able to execute what you wrote, right? And which kind of lends to, like, yeah, a very open-ended market where a lot of people can try their hand at it. Like, country music, if you can't do country, then it's like you can't do country, right? Or
yeah,
if
if
you can't
you
play
can't,
classical music, like,
absolutely, that's true. You can be up and going really quickly and easily as a rapper, or like, if you can't play the guitar, you can't play the guitar. Like,
mhm,
it's there's no leeway there, there's no argument to be made, right? But yeah, you can get on stage as a rapper like almost right away, without maybe even being ready, or I don't know. It's unique. It's unique in a lot of ways, and you kind of wonder. Yeah.
well, and we see it too. Like, I mean, I see artists all the time that aren't ready, and then somehow they're so good at self promoting and self marketing that they just spin it into like a completely new style. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not to, like, uh, maybe shine a light on mumble rapping, because I know that that has a lot to do linguistically with like a certain particular culture, and that's cool.
Hmm.
But I mean, a lot of people were like, "We're not feeling this at all," and then they're like, "Well, we're just gonna do it until you believe that this is really a thing," and it really is a thing. But I'm just using it as an example, right? Like, if people go out there and they're not really like 100%, then they just keep going and hit their brand power so hard that we're like, okay, wait, maybe my
Yeah.
ear isn't
It's
that tuned. Like, maybe I'm like not looking at this the right way.
yeah, yeah, and you sort of, I think you see that at all levels, where the primary skill set can be like salesmanship and promotion more than anything else. Being an old timer from before that, that wasn't a thing. You just, if you weren't any good, no one would put you on stage. Like, that was just
Right.
it. You just wouldn't. You just wouldn't. But now, if you're good at salesmanship and promotion and whatever, you can you can find your way on. And I don't know. I don't really know that if that's positive or not. It's
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has to have those skills, obviously, regardless of what you're doing in anything at all. Like, everyone has to know a bit about how to sell whatever their product is. But
Right.
um you have to actually have the product,
Well, yeah, and I don't know if it's all for the best, to be honest. And I'm not going to sit here and hate on anybody. I mean, it's really neat to be able to see people like self promote and just hustle hard for themselves. But more
Yeah.
importantly, like you have to have good swag. Like if you got good swag and not necessarily like great content, like no one's really stopping you from opening up for whoever. And I see it all the time, and I'm like,
Mhm.
is this a case of like everybody gets a ribbon, like maybe, or is it like the
Well,
community is just so loving and understanding that they're like, we're just gonna push for each other until until they're great.
and it does still seem like, you can get on and you can get shows, but people that really make it still do seem to have it all. You know what I mean? Like, um, you can get on stage and you can get shows and you can do your thing, but the people that have really done it, I can't think of anybody, certainly like locally or regionally, that's kind of blown up. That's like not good. You know what I mean? Like I think like the salesmanship without product will get you in the door, but I think after that you still like to get beyond that initial thing, you still sort of have to have the goods,
Hmm.
to do real numbers and real shows,
Yeah,
it's
that's fair.
yeah,
That's
it's still
fair.
the whole thing that gets all the way there.
Yeah. And what is the day? I mean, what happens when you have those days that you're not there? Like, I mean, you've had a lot of success. I see the names that are with you. I listen to your stuff, and it it's so comfortable. And I've said this to a few guests actually that you've mentioned. Like Caleb Hart was one of them. Surreal is another one. Like it is music you can just put on and then enjoy your day, which is why a fishing derby might not make sense, but it actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because those people are there just to
Sure.
have a good time, just like anything else. But maybe this is too personal, but I'm curious, like, what is somebody, what is um, a wise, OG do when you have days where you feel like you came up short, maybe, or things didn't line up properly, or you didn't, you know what I mean? Like, what happens then?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it with anything, like whether you're a musician or an actor or a graphic artist or a painter or anything. I think there's a huge amount of rejection and failure, even when you're doing well.
Hmm.
I think if you use actors as an example, I mean, you probably book 5% of what you audition. You're just auditioning and auditioning and auditioning and getting rejected, and it's just part of it, even when you're succeeding. And I think sort of that's just sort of a thing that you have to um, you have to sort of mentally fortify yourself against right off the bat if you're going to be in the arts in any way. Like, no matter how good you are or how successful you are, someone's always going to come along and say you're terrible, or you know what I mean, like no matter what. And I think um that's just part of it. And if you don't develop that skin pretty early on, you're probably not, it's not maybe the thing for you. Like,
Right.
things don't always work, and
Yeah.
nobody's perfect, and sort of remind yourself of all those things that we sort of, there's the cliche things like, Albert Einstein failed out of high school, or Michael Jordan didn't make his grade 9 basketball team, or
Right.
like these things, and just sort of try to tell yourself that you drag out, and nothing, nobody's batting 1,000. Nobody's,
Mm.
even the very, very best guys out there aren't succeeding all the time, and sort of reminding yourself of those things, and looking back at how far you've come, um,
Yeah.
and just not just don't let it get to you, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is because there's so many young dudes in my life that love that industry that try their heart out. And I had a conversation today with somebody that I really cherish and respect, and he came up a little bit short. He thought, he was actually, in his words, he said, I actually thought I was better than what I am. And I honestly didn't think I had to practice until, until tryouts came up, and it really hurt my feelings. And I was like, damn, like,
And
unlike,
that's hard, but it was also probably the best thing that could have happened to that person. He's gonna probably experience a lot of growth now, like through that realization. There's always a bigger fish. There's always somebody better. There's always, you know, um, and those little reminders, while maybe they can be like painful or it doesn't feel good, it's gonna benefit you in the long run. You know, it's gonna foster growth, and sort of sometimes you need that. You need a kick in the butt, so to speak, or um, a wake up call, or however you sort of want to look at it. And it's hard. It's all of those things are difficult. It's certainly not for the faint of heart, and you have to keep finding ways to sort of believe in yourself, because yeah, those things happen. I remember when I first formed my band, one of our very first gigs, and I said this to him. I went and said it to him, but we played the 5 Acre Shaker, like right out of the gate.
wow.
And then, like, the other act on with us was Caleb Hart, and man, he just got up there and like just blew my mind. You know what I mean? And I was just like, oh my lord. Like, it was sort of like, you go, it's like, yeah, we just booked this festival, like it's our first show, we're just smashing it already. And then some dude like Caleb Hart gets up there, and just like, you're just like, we got a lot of work to do. And it's like, it's at the time it's a bit of like, oh, but then what you do is you do the work, and you make the growth, and it you know it helps you ultimately. But
Right. Yeah.
my instinct watching him was like, let's just go home and start rehearsing right now. Like, like, let's just get back in there and just practice like all night. Like, I
Yeah.
just, it was just like, holy crap. Like, it was mind boggling.
But
and
it says
and
something, because you're still playing shows with them now, right? Like, you've kept up
sure.
the intensity, and look at, I mean, we were just talking about it. That was our first conversation, right? Right out the gate. You're like, man, this looks who's on the roster, right? Like, right beside you. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that says something to serious tenacity and just putting
Yeah,
in the work, right? Because yeah, that dude is
he's crazy good. And like, yeah, not sort of just, yeah, the fact that somebody's better doesn't mean you don't belong there, or whatever. And somebody will always be better. There's always going to be, no matter where you get. So
hmm,
it's just a lot of ego, I don't know, maintenance, I don't know, sort of,
yeah,
don't
it's a great way to put it, actually.
keeping the ego in a sweet spot where you're
Mm.
believing in yourself still, but you're not so overconfident that you stop working. I think that's the danger of getting too comfortable with your skill set, is you'll stop trying. You're like, I'm good. We're gonna
Yeah,
nail
it's
it.
all, we're cool. It's fine.
Whatever. We'll smash it. Like, we haven't rehearsed in 6 weeks, but who cares? We're the best.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
certainly want to avoid that. But yeah, like, you also don't want to be like, oh man, that guy just killed us. Let's just pack it
Right.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a sweet spot. There's a a right amount. You want to
Yeah.
keep yourself.
Kind of just in that, like, what's that? I always think of that word, like, it's probably the only word I remember from French class, actually, like, comme ci, comme ça. And I know that that might means like in the middle, but I always feel like that was just like, I don't know why that word always caught me. I'm like, that seems like a safe place to be. you know? Come see, come
Yeah.
saw. I don't really know what it means, but like sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like it's yeah, sort of like it's not bad.
Yeah.
We're doing fine. We're fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's like burning around you. It's like that meme.
Everything's fine.
So what inspired you? Like, how did you get involved with music in the beginning? Like, what was it something that kind of bestowed on you or something that you seeked out?
Um, well, I started out as in like I've been in fine arts even since before I started doing rap music. I went to theater school. I was like a stage actor. I was doing a lot of like musical theater. Um, and and then yeah, rap was always just sort of the music I listened to. So it's inevitable that you're gonna like try it, you know. And then I moved to Vancouver where quite a few of my friends were already there and already doing it. And and then yeah, I just sort of picked it up and it just kind of was the thing that went well of all the things, you know, like so I was sort of trying to do the other things too, but rap music was just what kept getting busier and busier and doing better and better. And after a while, like once something really kind of gets into your blood, you know, you just that's it then, right? Like you know, I've there have been times where I'm like, yeah, I think that's enough. You know, I think I'm done with this. But after a couple of months, or you just start to feel like weird, like you get an itch. You know, it's like a cow. You know, and you just get pulled back in. You know,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I've always been an entertainer. Like I've always loved to just be on the stage ever since I was 10 years old. You know, just doing Christmas concerts or whatever. That's always been my thing. And and yeah, it's just in me to do. But yeah, those years, those early years in Vancouver were pretty pivotal. It was so fresh then, you know what I mean? It was like a strange thing to do still. You know what I mean? It wasn't like now where like, you know, now rap music is like the biggest, it's the most popular music there is, but at the time, you know, in the early 2000s, it was still sort of unusual, still sort of unusual, and everything was so fresh and new and vibrant, you know what I mean? And yeah, some of the people I got to sort of experience working with, like people like DJ Moves and um, um, Josh Martinez and like Incorporated, and you know those were guys that we used to listen to, you know, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden we're just in their studios and we're doing shows with them, and it all just really in the early days really happened quickly, and that really hooks you, you know, when um yeah, and there were just wild times, you know, we were all young guys and it was just a wild scene and there was no internet and there was no none of that, you know, there was no well, there was internet, but there was no social media, there was no promotion, like none of us were making videos. It was just very different than it is now, you know. And
It
I
was
think a
raw
lot of
back then.
it was raw and I think a lot of older guys didn't really survive the crossover like you
Mm.
know, they were like, "Ah, this is stupid. I'm not doing this." You know, like, what am I gonna create content? Like, forget about it. You know, like, and I understand that. Like, it does. You know, all of a sudden, everything just completely changes, and it all is weird, and it does make you kind of go, "Oh man, do I want to just completely relearn everything that I thought I knew about how this worked?" And you know, it's yeah, not everyone did, and um I don't know. I don't know. Really, I think I've lost track. I don't know where I was
Well,
going with that, but
no, I mean, you
yeah,
you brought up so much. First of all, shout out to the theater kids because that is such an untapped resource. And the kids that actually have the freaking balls to go in there and not worry about anybody else but what they're about, like,
yeah,
man, what a cool space. And I'm so glad it still is part of like high school culture now. Um,
absolutely, yeah,
because
Yeah,
it's
I
so important. Like, the teachers that put in the extra hours after school. I don't know what type of program you're in, but like when I was in it, it was like from like 3:30 to 7 at night, like after
mhm,
school altogether, right? And I was just like, man, these teachers are
yeah,
not fooling around. Like it's probably the
no,
reason why I graduated, really, like for the extra
me
credits,
too.
So
Like grade 11, 12, that's all I really did, you know?
mhm.
I wasn't really going to any other classes. I was just going to the drama room all day and just being there. And I actually work in schools now as an EA, and this year I was able to direct our school's musical with like 10, 11, 12 year olds. We did Aladdin Jr.,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
that was a pretty crazy experience. Actually, it was wild, and it reminded me of just yeah, theater kids and what they're like. They're a different kind of kid, you know,
Yeah,
and
totally.
they're pretty awesome to be around. And yeah, but like you say, there was a lot of after school hours and a lot of just work, a lot of yeah, a lot of time goes into it, and I still don't have the time. I would love to be in a play now, but I just can't, you know. We have an adult musical theater troupe here in town called Three-Legged Dog, and I would love to be a part of some of their shows, but I just can't commit the time it would take, you know.
Well, it's a big
That's the
commitment, right? Like once you're
yeah,
in it till the end, and there's like so much, behind the scenes production that goes into it, and
yeah,
rehearsal, and making sure everybody else is accounted for. Because if one person ain't there, then you know what I mean. Everyone's got to pick up the slack, and like it's yeah.
yeah,
I don't think people understand really just the massive amount of energy that goes into everything when we're talking about theater. I just shout out to the comment section. You got like there is like I don't know, just under 100 comments, and everybody's out there sharing and liking and all of that. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys all know that we see you. And I brought up it says hey it's Levi because Levi is DJ Lion. I don't know if everybody knows that, but I'm going to make sure that there's a link in the description. There's a 10-year-old DJ out there hitting the festival scene pretty hard right now. So anytime he pops
yeah.
up in the comment sections, I have no problem throwing him up there like, "Hey, Levi, I hope you're having a good night's
That's
sleep."
awesome. Yeah, I've seen a lot of what he's doing. That is super inspiring stuff. Like it's awesome. It's
Yeah, right.
awesome to see, you know, and those sorts of people that start things that young, they have a huge advantage. Like you'll never you'll never compete with someone who started something as a kid, you know, if you didn't. Like there's a type of just ability to learn that kids have that is finite. You know, you can't learn like that when you're grown up. Your brain just isn't like doesn't work that way, and it's yeah, it's really cool, and it's gonna
So
be
true.
something to see where that goes. Like by the time he's 20 years old, he's gonna be, you know, top top of the heap for sure. Like
Man, we brought this kid out for Decimate Metal Fest. Okay, so first of all, he had to like have the gumption to go in front of a bunch of metalheads in a festival that
yeah,
had nothing to do with what he was doing. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
he like at pancake breakfast. So like, I mean, probably the fullest time, probably like the fullest room during the whole festival because like everybody was out there eating pancakes and doing their thing. But when I say like, and no hate on any of the other, acts that were like that were kind of filling some of the time slots there or whatever around that time, but it was it was obvious that he was already like well through that door. I was like, this is not, I'm not watching like a youth doing his thing. Like he's standing up with these like full grown adults. Like this is not even a
yeah.
joke, and
He's
he
really
was
hanging in there.
yeah, and he
Yeah,
was such a professional. Like he came out and we like put him up and he had all his like stuff organized, like his case and everything. I was like, what? Like when I was 10, like I don't know if I was this concerned about anything.
no,
Like at
no
all.
way.
You
Yeah,
know? It's
yeah. I
wild.
still had my GI Joes going and stuff when I was 10.
Yeah, totally. And then the West Coast scene itself, like we had that like yeah, and I've talked about it with like Momashiri a few times, like, there was that kind of that that rise that happened while the East Coast was going up, right? And then shone a little light. But I feel like the West Coast right now is just on its own, holding its own so hard. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to say that like it wasn't happening in the 90s or whatever, and that it only happened because like the East Coast was doing it. But right now, whatever you guys got going on, like I don't even know what's happening on the East Coast at this point. Because you guys are just like constantly like throwing out licks on the regular. Like it's I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, wait a second. Like what's going on here? And maybe it had to do with like much music back in the day and kind of the empire that was the East Coast, right? But yeah, it's really cool to see everyone that like stuck it in and went through the changeover with social media and all of that stuff because the you know the the legends that are still doing it, it's like it's been really cool to watch the
Yeah.
evolution. So
It is cool. It's kind of too bad, like, that there's that. It would be nice to be a little more connected to what's going on. I think Canada just geographically is so large, like when you're planning tours and stuff, and you sort of think, oh yeah, we'll do Western Canada, or the idea of going all the way across, like it's kind of its own region. Like if you're gonna do the East Coast, it's like a separate thing, like it's pretty hard to tour the country,
totally.
just because of the sheer size of it, and there's not really much in between, like you drive 5,000 kilometers and there's only 3 cities in that whole space, so it's like nobody's gonna do that. Like it's like
Yeah,
when you're in the States, there's a big city every 30 minutes, right? Like
right, right.
um and it's a whole different thing touring, but we're just kind of um yeah, it's insular, which it would be nice if it wasn't, but yeah, I mean, when you start talking about things like let's go to Ontario and tour, it's like bananas, then you
Yeah.
got to start talking about airplanes, and it's just a whole different thing, right?
Well, and
um
I didn't mean to laugh, but I was just recently in Saskatchewan, and I went to
yeah.
all major cities, and they're all they're all doing their own thing, and it's cool, like whatever. But and I don't want to say that there was nothing in between because I have a really new appreciation for the blue collar sector, and I got some wicked images, and I'm super excited to like celebrate Labor Day with what just the content that I got from Saskatchewan. So shout out to
Yeah.
like that the hardcores out there doing their thing. But when you say there is nothing, like I mean, it is a lot of beauty and a lot of, canola and stuff, but there is not a house or a building
No.
or intersection or
Yeah.
like I mean, honestly, and you're right. Like if you're gonna do a lineup and you're gonna try and make it worth the gas money and the stress and the sweat equity and the time, you know what I mean? Like it's just not realistic. It's
Mm-mm.
just not like I can't
Yeah.
imagine everyone that puts in those shows. I've seen a couple of people pop in a couple of like, Saskatchewan dates or whatever. And I'm like, man, that's the whole other thing. Like,
Well, and even here, like we toured Western Canada in 2022, with a van, like with a motorhome, and even just in that small of space, we would drive for hours and hours and hours, just through the wilderness, like it's yeah, it's just not really super feasible to yeah. Anyone who tours the East generally flies, right? They fly to Toronto, tour around it, and then fly back. The it's its separate thing. The idea of making it one big thing, and
well, and we
I
don't
wouldn't.
really have like a Super Bowl type thing. Like we have the Junos, but there isn't really a ton. I mean, like for example, like my dad just got back from Atlanta and he went and did the International Singer Songwriter Awards, right? And I was like, whoa, like okay. And once I started looking into it, there was like a bunch of like really cool award shows that were just like happening for all types of music, for all types of I don't want to say levels, but like, they were really respecting everybody for all sorts of
Yeah.
reasons, not just that one, but like, everything that I was checking out. And I was like, Canada we kind of dropped the ball a little bit when it comes to like really recognizing what's happening in the music scene. Never mind like hip hop, but or in general, but like just all across the board, like we all kind of wait for like one, the Juno Awards, and even that doesn't really get as much push as it should.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, and we got to sort of keep in mind that Canada's 1/10 of the size. I think that's a lot of it too. Like, there's only really two major cities, really. Like the other cities are like 800,000 people. I mean,
Mm,
um, having 400 million people as opposed to 40 million people, and it's just a lot more money and a lot more everything
right.
for the Americans, and and that's why you sort of see, unfortunately, when people get big, like Mercury's big or whatever, they have to go down there. You end up going down there. They all there's like have places in LA, or there's a ceiling in Canada. It's a very small country population wise in the world, and I think we can only expect so much. But yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice if there was more push behind it. But I don't know how that would look, what that would look like or what that would mean. It
Well,
would
it would
be,
almost have to be private, right? Like until, well, I guess it is private anyways, but yeah, like there's just, I guess, and then there's also like, um, the limits of some of these people's history. I was just thinking of Hercules and like him traveling and stuff, and I was like, man, like we lose out on so many big shows in the other direction because of some of the limits that some of these people have, just based on like past choices or whatever. And that's not specific to hip hop because people be wilding out in all genres of lifestyles, right? So
yeah, yeah,
like I don't mean it in any sense like that, but like because of the way that the border is even set up, it doesn't really lend itself to be like super inclusive when it comes to like some of the way that the tours could be set up to be successful, maybe, right? Like
yeah.
because they
Definitely,
keep.
definitely seen a lot of shows tank because the person didn't get across the border. That's definitely
Mhm.
an all too common scenario for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's not even like the felony thing. Like I think I seen a Deglo Abortions just canceled their tour, and it was like just something to do with their passports or something. It wasn't even like anything criminal. It was just like the whatever the paperwork
yeah,
was
that
through or whatever.
recently, Ari the Rugged Man canceled the entire Canadian part of his tour for something like that. Something weird happened with the promoter, and yeah, that's that you can't cross. When you cross the border, then you're dealing with a whole different promotion team and production team, and
Mhm.
you kind of get handed over, and those sorts of things certainly are problematic and would, yeah, definitely be discouraging for somebody thinking of coming here as a bigger name. Like, should we put some Canadian dates on? It's like, well, it's going to be a hassle. Maybe
Yeah.
we just won't bother.
Yeah, and the state and vice versa. Like I was just thinking if you were going to do a cross Canada tour to maybe make up for some of the space in the bread basket there, like to go across the down the border a little bit and just hit some of the cities on that side. But if you got to, once you start messing around with paperwork and stuff like that for everybody, like
Yeah, yeah,
why
and
does it
there's
not make sense?
there's only half a dozen big cities in the whole country, really, like,
Mhm.
um so yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I don't know what what could happen there. I guess maybe things chilled out politically and borders chilled out, like maybe more how they used to be. Like, I certainly am old enough to remember when you didn't need a passport to go to the United States. Like, you could just zip down there anytime you wanted to, and
Mhm.
which
I have a
seems,
white mom, like, I have a white mom, and I distinctly remember the only thing that she was concerned about taking me across the border was having, uh, like a fucking handwritten note from like my dad or whatever. Like, do you have permission to take this like mulatto child with you or not? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it was because she
So
had like
those are
blue eyes or
notes.
something. It had like nothing to do with, if anyone was breaking laws or nothing. It was like, do you own
Yeah.
this child? Because she doesn't look
And
like
a note was good enough. Like back in
just
the day when your parent could send you to buy smokes with a note.
yeah, same
Like
thing,
six
right?
years old. And, can I? My mom wants smokes.
Yeah,
I
and
got
a
a note.
lotto ticket.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's good. That's cool. Yeah. Your note seems legit. Here's your ticket.
Right.
Here's your smokes, little boy. Huh?
It's so
Uh,
funny. I
yeah.
remember crossing big highways to go get lotto tickets when I was a kid and a pack of smokes and stuff. Like, I might be like dating myself a bit, but yeah, it was really not that long ago. It seems crazy how
No,
much
it
the world's
wasn't.
changed in
Yeah.
I think kind of in the wrong direction. I don't know. I've been really opinionated though lately about like where we're at with like racism and inclusivity and all of this stuff. I'm like, I'm not here for any of this. I feel like we've gone so far backwards. It doesn't really make sense to me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. There's a bit of a resurgence. Well, I just think with the internet and social media now we just know what everybody thinks.
Mhm.
Like and no matter what sort of a piece of shit you may be, you can broadcast your opinion for all to see, and we're seeing all that. And unfortunately, I think the way the algorithm works, it serves us up the worst, the worst possible stuff because it knows we like it, or like we want to see it. It'll make you,
Mhm.
even if it's maybe even especially if it's totally contrasting to what you believe. You're like, what did this guy say? And you'll click it, and that just feeds the algorithm, and it's just serving us up the very worst of humanity, I think, in a
I've
lot of.
seen like the worst clickbaits lately. Today there was one where like I don't really like entertain trolls, you know. I'm
Yeah.
like I'm really good at like just scrolling past. But this guy was like, if you're on, OAT medication, like if you're on Suboxone, then you're not clean. And like I I don't actually give a shit. Like it's really that's not really like whatever. But when I got, like, into it, and then he was like, "This is my life as a recovering drug addict." And I'm like, "You did you you knew that people would be, like, upset about what you were saying. Like, you didn't even believe what you said. Like, you totally just clickbaited me into, like, watching your life
Yeah.
on Suboxone. Like, what the heck?"
People will trick you by
You know?
saying, yeah,
And then
just
he's like, "Come dose with me." I'm like, "This is wild. Like, what am I"
that's pretty, yeah, that's pretty shitty. Like, like, yeah, that's certainly like lowest common denominator type of promotion.
Yeah. Which is why, going back to like the smaller clubs and the intimate spaces is where it's at, like I mean big cities are great and they, the numbers are good, but there is definitely something about being at like an intimate place with somebody who really wants to be there, like an artist like
Yeah,
yourself who like believes in what they're doing and sees the importance of it. And like that's where music is therapeutic. That's where entertainment becomes therapeutic, right? It's like,
oh yeah, and the small places and the small clubs, like those people are so stoked always. Like one of my favorite places to play is Alert Bay. We go up to Alert Bay on the North Island, and like, man, just the way you're received and how everyone's so enthusiastic, and it's like this is one of like three shows that's going to happen here all year, and the whole town comes out and everyone's so jazzed and so positive. Like sometimes you'll find in big cities it's like, well, there's like 50 other things happening. It's like I saw Snoop like 3 weeks
right?
ago. Like
Yeah, twice.
nobody
Yeah.
nobody gives a shit really. Like, yeah, and I mean, again, going back to sort of Canada just being so small, if you're only gonna play big cities, like how much are you gonna play? Like, you have to, if you're gonna put together a tour or play all the little places, it's just not enough. Otherwise, there's not really an option to not,
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
to. you just appreciate it in a different way. Like, yeah, there's not 1,000 people here, but the people that are here are like just so dope and so jazzed and you know, learning about just vibe and appreciative folks. It's good too. It's good in its own way.
Oh, and like Alert Bay, all those places on the island, like they so deserve to have you guys. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they so deserve to have that. They so deserve to have that outlet. The one out of the three times of the year they get to go and do something like it's it makes my heart happy to know that it's like just as equally important to the artist as it is to the people because man, there's a lot going on around there and like you
yeah,
know, not everything is sunshines and rainbows all the time. And I don't mean to get emotional. It's just like it's just really near and dear to my heart. And I love when I hear that artists are like stoked to go to those places and that it's important to them because
oh yeah,
I know that it's like as equally as important to the people that are there supporting you guys. You know, it means so much.
absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in a tiny town like that,
Mm,
so I totally get it. Um,
yeah.
nothing ever came there. So the fact that I think that's the thing too. You have in Alert Bay, as to use that example, there's a family there, and they take the initiative to bring artists there and put these shows on and make it worthwhile. And
Mhm.
having that sort of leadership, it changes the whole vibe for the whole town, and changes everything. We Surreal and I went to Port Hardy not too long ago, same sort of thing. There's just a person there that takes it upon himself to make that happen for his community and brings us up there, and you know what I mean, those sorts of people who will just take that on, and it just changes everything for the whole place, and it's so good to see, and you want to honor those people, and like do it for them, like you've done this for your community, and we're going to make sure that it pays off for you, and you know what I mean, put on the best show we can and be as cool as we can, and
Yeah.
um yeah, make it worth the work that you did, because it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work on that end, the production end of it, and the organizing and just booking rooms and booking hotels and all of it that goes along with it. So
Yeah. Shout
those
out to
people are,
the front of house and back of house people that are doing their thing, you
yeah,
know? Yeah.
yeah, it's they just take it on themselves to do things for their community, and it changes things for everybody. And those are the real, like, the unsung sort of heroes, those sort of people that just give and do just 'cause,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think that there's a not I mean, I've never met anybody in that position who's ever looking for recognition, but yeah, for sure like unsung is definitely the right word because I can't count the amount of times where you like come across people that are just working tirelessly for the the greater just for the love of it, and they got all the coolest
Yeah,
stories and like oh man, the
yeah,
best like band posters ever and the coolest old t-shirts that are like barely together, but yeah, no one really
for
talks
sure.
about like their contribution to the industry as a whole, right? Because if it wasn't for them, it
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be standing, to be honest.
No, it wouldn't, absolutely, if every town had one, or at least, um, everyone would get to have that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
There's an old lighting and sound tech. I shouldn't say old because they're not particularly old, but they've been at it for a really long time, and they work at the theater in Campbell River, and they're like an institution of themselves. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Tidemark Theater is an institution, absolutely. But these two dudes that work in these positions, I don't know if anyone else has ever. I think like hashtag baby Gordon. He'll know what that means. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever actually done his job since that building's been pink, but it's like these guys, I mean, they might get credited once in a while here and there for something, but like people that go into those jobs and just like do it for the love of doing it and spend the extra couple of hours to get that like, everything dialed in perfect and like, the probably everybody that works for IATSE like as a whole. But it's like it's so
yeah,
cool when you do come across those people. Because yeah, I don't know why I'm like feeling so sentimental tonight. I'm like, oh gosh, we need to talk about all these like all these
Yeah.
industry important.
Yeah, well, they're so valuable. Like those are the people that make the world go round, really, like
Mhm.
10% of people do 90% of the work, they say, right? And those sorts of people just nothing would happen without them. Those just sort of tireless whirlwind sort of people.
Mhm.
They're everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Hmm. So what's up next? What's happening next? Like, what's going on next in your world? You got any projects on the side that you're like, this is kind of important to me, and like maybe that aren't on the calendar yet, but that you have in the peripherals or anything?
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely am been talking with Paul at the Indigenous Women's Sharing Society. He does a lot of work at the Link, which is a youth um sort of a youth center that we have here, and they do a lot of programming, and we're sort of talking about getting a more regular hip hop workshop slash show slash um thing going, which would be really good. um Sort of just workshopping with young artists and giving them a chance to perform, um and just promoting things like the Link as such a valuable community service and place. Sometimes those things get overlooked again. Like you have a bunch of people down there. They're more of those tireless people we were just talking about, and so I'm pretty excited to see where that goes. And other than that, just sort of just plugging away on music, making new music, making new singles, making new art. Pretty soon I'll be back to work. I don't work in the summer times. I work in schools, so back to work, working at a new school. So yeah, sort of winding down, very busy musically throughout the summer. Like it's when I do all the shows, and then I try to sort of create new music over the winter and perform it over the summer, and kind of in that shift over time now, like a lot of 3 shows next weekend, and I did 2 last weekend, so like, 5 shows in 8 days, and then just right back to work. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of it. I don't plan too far in advance, and I don't um yeah, working on new
Like how you
music with
said,
Surreal.
like it's kind of it, like it's not like taking over the world or anything like that. Like, oh, no big deal. We're just gonna do awesome things and like give back to the community and just transition into fall and do like it's
Yeah,
that's so awesome. All of that sounds beautiful. It sounds like a great way to give back to the community and serve the people. And it sounds like you have the right people supporting you. And in your corner and doing the same thing as you. I know Surreal is not joking around. He takes outreach and love very serious. And um, so yeah, I think you got probably the coolest crew that I could speak about near you. So that's really cool to hear. And yeah, well, that sounds wonderful.
yeah, I've definitely found a kindred spirit there. I think like we've kind of just hit it off right away, and yeah, we're really, I think, just sort of on the same track, as far as um, just community and yeah, what community building looks like, and yeah, what our responsibilities are. I think as artists, it's more than just like getting up there and being like, look at me, what I'm doing. You want to sort of try to make it worth something to somebody else as well. And yeah, I'm pretty focused on. I really like to work with my band. I really am doing that more than anything these days, like musically. Um, I enjoy that the most. I have a pretty sweet funk 3-piece funk band, and we're doing a lot of stuff, but I do still perform without them. But yeah, I would perform with them all the time probably if it was up to me.
Oh,
Um,
that's it.
yeah, they're a cool group of guys, and we're kind of really making it. I don't know, making it fun. Having a little team. Hip hop can be a sort of a solitary thing, right? Everybody's just a one. You don't see a lot of like duos or trios even anymore. Like There's no Beastie Boys up there, 3 or 4 guys, like, or like Sweatshop Union. There
Yeah,
used to be like
yeah,
it was like seven. There was like 7 guys up there. You don't
right,
see that
yeah.
much anymore.
No, there always used to be like, yeah, 5 or 6 guys and maybe a chick, right? Never 2 chicks, only just 1, but, like, there was always, like, a setup and, like yeah, even, like, the hype guys, right? Like, that was always part of a thing, like
Yeah.
yeah,
Hype guy was
yeah.
like that was like The Apprentice.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
no, you're not really ready to rap yet. You can just yell stuff for now
right,
until you
totally.
get a little further along. Do you remember, there was a two-girl group in Vancouver that was really funny. They were called Stinkmit. Do you remember them?
Oh my god, yes. That's okay, but
Stinkmit.
that's
That was a
that's
long time
going
ago,
yeah, that's going back to, like, I don't know, maybe
20 plus
early
years ago,
yeah.
early 2000s. Yeah, and they called themselves Betty Ford and Jenny Craig.
That's amazing. Those are like
They
borderline,
were
drag queen
they were
names,
they were
so
they
fabulous.
were funny girls. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and they had songs like Camel Toe and stuff. Like, they were hilarious, and they had a whole show. Like, they'd have a guy planted in the crowd, and they'd bring him up, and you'd be like, "Is this real? Like, what is happening?" But they were outstanding. We definitely opened for Stinkman a few times
Oh,
because
wow.
the I was in a duo back then, and we were sort of funny. Like, we were doing sort of funny stuff, so we kind of worked with Stinkman and outrageous. Yeah, like, yeah, I don't
That's
know,
so
but yeah,
fun.
it's
D12 was
was
kind
yeah,
of the last kind of big group that I could think of that kinda hit it, like, you know what I mean? D12 and
yeah.
maybe, um I mean, they all kinda went solo eventually, but they're still kicking around. Like, I seen, wasn't Merc just talking about them actually?
Yeah, well, and I think we're coming back around to that. Like, there's a few groups again, like Griselda or like Coast Contra, or like, I think we're kind of looping back around, and you're seeing young people sort of pick up that older style again, like, which is very encouraging. 'Cause,
Oh, I'm so ready. I'm here for it. Like bring on the 90s
yeah,
on. Bring on the 80s. Bring on the I seen this image the other day of a bunch of people hanging out at McDonald's. And not that I'm one for McDonald's, but there was not one person in that whole shot that wasn't done to the absolute nines. Like their hair was done, they're like looking fresh, everyone had their shoelaces clean and I was like, "Where's that
yeah.
culture?" Like where did that go? Why are we out here taking our babies to school in our pajamas and shit? Like, what happened? Like, I don't.
E- Everyone spent all their shoe money on phones. Everyone's phone, everyone's phone is worth $1,200. You can't buy shoes, can't buy fresh kicks anymore.
Right. Yeah.
You just save them for when you're photographing yourself.
That's right. Yeah. No one
You
touches
don't
any
wear
of their
it any other
swag
time.
anymore. That's so
Yeah,
sad. That's so sad. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're and the hair game, right? Because hair is such a massive part of that culture as well. And like, um, yeah, where did that all go? I'm ready for it. Bring it back. Like, it needs to come back.
I think I think we'll see it. I think we'll see it come back. And my oldest is 16, and he dresses exactly the same way I did when I was 16. He's
Perfect.
wearing the biggest pants, and like, it's all coming back around,
Mhm. Perfect. It's
which is
working.
good.
So excellent.
It's happening. Well, they're getting tired of it too, I think.
Oh
They're
man.
they're
My son was
it's not
convinced
they
that his friend's mom like hated her kid. He was like, why does like I'm pretty sure that he like his mom doesn't like him and I was like, why? What's going on? I'm all like stressed out. Like, what's happening? Like, do you need me to come get you? Like, what's going on? He was like, no, it's okay. So he can't, he pointed out, he was like, she just like she let him go to school in his pajamas and it wasn't pajama day. And then my kid's not old, like not old enough to have an opinion about other people's parenting. And I was like, "What?" And he was like, he genuinely thought like his friend was like being neglected. Like he was like, "That's not cool."
Yeah,
I was like,
now
"Well, at
kids
least you
just
have
wear
somewhere."
pajamas. It's just a thing. And they have to be the plaid pajamas too. They all just rock the plaid pajama pants.
Okay, so it's like a trend. I didn't know that. I was like,
It's
I
a
don't know, maybe
thing.
she
Oh,
didn't forget about him.
it's a it's a
Okay,
thing
okay,
for sure.
okay.
Kids just wear pajamas. I don't know. Can't can't explain it, but they do it big time.
Hmm. Well, I'm ready to bring back kids that care about their, their clean shoelaces and stuff and their fades and their, and
We
like
used to have
waxing
to
their.
go we used to like have to go to Vancouver, and we would go to Vancouver to Foix, and we would get the fat laces, put them in your
Mm,
shoes. Like we couldn't
yes.
get them here. We'd travel all the way there to get shoelaces.
That's what I
We
mean. Like, put in a little sweat equity, man. I used to go to Vancouver just to get my sunglasses from Cherry Bomb because nobody else had like, unique shades. My kid wouldn't be doing that. Well, he might, but like,
you
kids
can
aren't out
just
there doing that. Like,
you can just order everything now. You can
mm,
order absolutely anything.
yeah, it's
Just
too
absolutely
accessible.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too accessible.
So no, you're not earning it.
No. Um, I don't know if you can hear, but my beautiful baby is in the background and he is calling my name. And I hate to cut this short because I would love to chat with you a little bit longer. Um,
No
but
problem.
but I'm going to go take this mom emergency. I would like to say thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight.
Of course,
Octo6, it's
thank
been
you.
such
Yeah.
a pleasure. I really enjoyed the chat. It's nice to know that there's like, like-minded people out there that are out there being, just important pieces of the puzzle that is hip hop culture on the West Coast scene. Thank you for representing the island and everything else that you're doing. I'm super stoked to see what's happening with this project. And also just anything that happens with Surreal, to be honest. You guys are crushing it out
Yeah.
there.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you,
Okay. Thank
everybody,
you very
for.
much. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it was our pleasure. Thanks, everyone in the comment section that took the time to tune in. I really do appreciate you. I seen all of you. Calico, I love you. And for everybody else, we'll see you next Tuesday. Stay safe.